Hey, you're in?
I think
Okay,
we're in.
let me check a couple things. Okay, we do not have any questions from community. Okay. Okay, I think we're ready.
Okay, so we'll reconvene to open session. And if Mark would give us a report out of closed session, please.
Yeah. At a closed session, we had classified items extending a maternity leave and granting a parental leave for CSEA. And both of those were unanimously approved. We had a discussion and an approval of a rejection letter for a litigation in regarding a student accident. The board unanimously sent a letter of rejection, and so we turned it over to our liability insurance. We also talked about negotiations, and obviously we weren't making decisions, we just had discussions about it. So that's closed session.
Okay. And because the flag salute last meeting didn't really work out very well, because we all were talking, I would suggest that everyone take a moment and perform your own flag salute. And beyond that, I think we can dispense with the flag salute, unless somebody has an objection to that. And that brings us down to recognition. We have 5 retirements.
And let me make sure I get my list because our list is important. And our retirees, there are 5 of them. And the first one is Jill Walton at the high school, who's been with us since '99. We also have Lenore Hansen, who is our speech person, who's been with us for a really long time. Lenore has been with the district since '89. Priscilla Dodge has been with us since 2013. Patty Dalton since 1997. And I didn't even realize this was her real name. It's Denise Weiss, Hopi, who's been with us since 2007. They've all done a great job for us. They're going to be missed. And it's always nice to, at my age, I kind of appreciate retirement more than I used to when I was in my 40s. I'm like, why would you retire when you still like it and you're still good at it? I think I get that now. Yeah, they've done a great job for us and we appreciate the work they've done. And I know that Trina, we have stuff for them, is that correct?
Oh, there she is.
Yes, yes, I have certificates for all of the retirees.
Yep. Yeah, obviously, we're not handing them out tonight, but we certainly wanted to make sure at a board meeting we recognize them and thank them for their service.
Well, all I can say is congratulations on the retirements, and I'm being recently retired. I don't understand how I ever found time to work, but
That's what I said.
hope that their retirement is very fulfilling and they enjoy some time for themselves.
Okay. Information items.
P2 report.
Yeah. I sent you basically you saw the information on P2. I guess the best thing I can say about the P2 is that our enrollment is holding nicely and our school seems to be pretty stable in enrollment. You know, we're over 1,500 every year, and it's been pretty solid. I'm pretty pleased about that. As much as I dislike the whole concept of ADA, but ADA is stayed pretty consistent as well. So,
Okay.
not much to do with that except look at statistical data.
Yeah, it's pretty steady for the last since 2014. Now, Williams report. Anybody got any questions about the P2 report? I should say.
I do. It didn't say what their findings were, just that it was attached, and I couldn't find the attachment.
Oh, the attachment was there, and there's a graph and shows everything from 2014 to the current year.
Yeah, it's just a graph.
Okay. I didn't seem to get that. I don't
It was
know.
at the bottom of the email, and it's
Right, I pushed the deal, but it didn't come up.
odd.
So did we pass or whatever?
Paul, I made you a hard copy on the second items.
Uh-huh.
We revised, or maybe I just emailed it. No,
Okay.
no, they were in. I printed those for everybody.
So I did want to make note, I think if it's the document that Jen sent us was an Excel file, and I do notice that sometimes when I open an Excel file, it does not maximize it. Sometimes you have to also hit the Excel icon.
Paula won't
Okay.
have them on an iPad though.
Oh, yeah, because I only have an iPad in. So, okay, but we passed it or whatever?
Yeah, it worked.
Usually-
It came up on my iPad without a problem.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I
She
don't
just
know.
has an older iPad. She doesn't have the Excel reader.
Yeah.
It's basically just a chart that looks like this.
Oh, okay. I did see one that looked like that.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm sorry. I must not have realized that's the chart I was reading.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's
Well,
just
then
a-
thanks, Gina, or
Yeah, it's
whomever.
just a bar graph.
Oh, okay. But so then it just showed that they're coming back again next year?
Yeah, it basically showed you what it told you.
Yeah, okay. Well, I wasn't real concerned.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody got any further questions about the P2 report? Let's move on
P2,
to,
I thought we were,
we're on
Okay.
information item A, P2 report.
oh, okay, I'm sorry. I meant though, I thought we were doing the quarterly report from the Williams Act.
That's what we're doing right next, unless somebody's
This second, okay, that's the one I didn't get. Okay, I got that. Okay.
moving on to,
Trina, this is just a letter from the county telling us that they got our information and gave it a thumbs up. Is that correct?
That is correct. So quarterly, we fill out the graph, and then we send it, or not the graph, but we fill out that questionnaire and we send it to the county office. And they turn around and say, yes, we received your report. Thank you very much. And then we just bring it back to you one more time.
Yeah.
Show you that they,
They just approved our Williams report.
Oh, okay. I thought they made recommendations or did something.
No.
that, Paula, what you're talking about is
Uh-huh.
the FIT reports, the facility inspection reports.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Those you guys review annually.
yeah, we just don't have,
No, you got them in the fall.
I guess, that's right, that's right.
You got them in the
That's
fall,
the one that said which classroom had
correct?
electrical issues and stuff like that,
Correct.
right?
They only come around once a year for that inspection.
And
Oh, okay.
A year, we do this Williams quarterly report, which not only talks about inspections at the school site, but it's also about instructional materials for students, teachers working out of their credentialed area, and any complaints that we receive from parents, which we have 0.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, the FIT reports, maintenance and custodial have collected everything that were on the FIT reports, with the exception of the roof at Blosser, the parking lot at the high school, the things we can't pay to do. Everything else has been fixed and repaired on the FIT report.
Awesome.
Oh,
And, because, I asked Mark to do a walkthrough himself, take a look at a bunch of that stuff. And
Yeah.
he reported that he went through and did exactly that. So validation.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw some of the pictures. That was cool. We're a little hard to figure out where they belong, but they all seem to know. So
I did
that
that for
was,
Ted. I wanted Ted to make it a scavenger hunt for Ted.
yeah, well, he seemed to find most of them. We were talking about some dripping of the water spouts or whatever at the high school, but I guess he's going to deal with that later. And he's painting or something now, or maybe he did deal with it. I don't know. But anyway, things were on the list that I knew about, so that was good.
Okay, so next item is the WTA comments. Tessa on board?
Tessa, you're there, aren't you?
No, see here.
Yes, indeed, I am here.
You had that big background that's violating the space.
We're all here. Okay, I want to start first of all by letting you know that CTA puts out a magazine called CTA Educator, and they honored some of our local educators, California Inspiring Generations, and Kim Case, Douglas Case, and Kelly Case Brackett were all acknowledged for their multi-generational impact on education in Willits. So that's kind of a cool local kids done good. Next on my list is we WTA, CTA are aware of the projected budget cuts, both overall and to education. At the same time, we're also pretty clear that there's going to be money coming from the federal level. And we really need to push and be proactive to support the CARES Act, the Education Stabilization Fund, and the E-rate program, which $1 trillion for CARES, $175 billion for ESF, and $2 billion for the E-rate program, which is to bring more internet access to rural areas. That's going to be particularly important for us. I'd like to get it in the notes that if you call 1-855-977-1770, you'll be sent directly to an answering machine for Jared Huffman, and tell them to support the CARES Act, the Education Stabilization Fund, and the E-rate program. We're going to need it badly. Okay, next one. Go ahead.
You say the number one more time.
Yes, ma'am. 855-977-1770. We have it posted on Willits Teachers Association, Willits Educators on Facebook as well.
Tessa?
Okay, yes.
With a question, Tessa.
I do. I just need to know those three items again. I got the phone number, but the CARE Act or something that, could you repeat those?
Would you like me to email it to you?
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you?
Tessa, could you put it in
Yeah.
chat? Could you put it in chat?
Put it in the chat?
Sure thing.
Yeah.
I can do that. Maybe not while I'm talking, but I'll get it there. This is complicated.
Trina, when you get
Okay,
that,
we're all,
Yes, I will.
okay.
So it didn't include the
So
hearing?
WTA,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
are you ready for me to move on?
Yes,
go
ma'am.
ahead.
Okay. We will be honoring our retirees as well. Thank you for confirming that Patty is now on that list. And next month we have some different ideas of how we're going to WTA is going to honor them as well. Another piece of good news is that today we voted to approve 4 scholarships for dependents of WTA members. So we have a $500 scholarship going to each one of these recipients: Crystal Kammer, Daisy Barrett, Emily McKay, and Micah Coughlin. I'll send those names to you as well, Trina, so that you can put them in the minutes.
Thank you very much.
So we've honored 4 of our local kids. Different sites are working on ideas for how to have end of the year celebrations. Our parents, our kids, our teachers are all really wanting something. We're all tossing around different ideas, like making a video or doing a parade. So we'll get something figured out and let you know what we're doing next month, so we can say goodbye and kind of have a closure for stuff. All right, and last thing I want to say is that it looks like the package proposal that Mark gave the negotiation team to look at, they have decided to reject it, and we're going to be back at the table bargaining. So there's pros and cons to it happening that way, but I'm sure we'll work out something for everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, Tessa. CSEA. That's it. So moving on to CSEA.
Yeah, I'm here. Is everybody here?
Yep.
Yeah, we got actually pretty busy. We have a full complement of classified staff working at all the sites. We have grounds and maintenance, custodials, doing a lot of custodial cleaning and stuff. The food services they're working shifts to keep all the food going out, and they're actually doing more deliveries now. So transportation's provided them a van for that. Along the lines of food services, Mark has sent out a nice little video that talks about the combinations of the kitchens and the reasoning why, and the goals of doing it. And back in March, about March 30th, everybody could see that. We had printed up a flyer and went around and hand delivered it to all the folks at the sites. Basically, it's food service employees, proposed changes to kitchens. Don't just let it happen. Be part of how it happens. Let's meet and talk about the issues. Had some pretty good feedback when we were there, but we still haven't had any phone calls or emails to sit down and talk about it. So it seems to me everybody's pretty okay with it. We also, I think the last day or two, we are purchasing some caps and gowns for some seniors because for whatever reasons they don't have them, which is a good thing. It'll be interesting to see how they're showing off at the football field. That'll be a nice little thing Mark's going on. And then just a reminder to everybody that, you know, this current situation that's going on, when the state loses 1/4 of its tax revenue, some things are going to happen. And a lot of people might not like it and some will like it, but everybody needs to be prepared.
Alex?
Yep. Okay. So, so board comments. I basically, I'll just lead off and say I don't have anything going on right now other than just trying to read up and stay as prepared for the changes that this COVID-19 thing is going to push us towards. I'm very deeply concerned about what our budget's going to look like next year. I'm also deeply concerned about what's what school is going to look like in August. You know, the procedural changes we'll have to make, how teachers are going to be affected, and most importantly, how our student population is going to be affected. So as I've mentioned to the superintendent, is we need to plan for the worst and hope for the best, especially when it comes down to things like the budget and how we're going to deliver education to our students. So that's all I've got. Move on. We'll let Jeannie next.
Jeannie, and I just want to say that I have really appreciated the weekly communication from Maria at Bechtel Grove, that she has sent us information every week as to how things are going, what they're doing, and it's been really informative and helpful to make me feel that I'm connected. And because of that, I requested from Mark, and he made arrangements that the other school site administrators also communicated to the board as to how things were going, but that hasn't been happening on a weekly basis, and also special ed. So anyway, I really appreciate that, because I find that the sheltering in place and trying to not be in physical approximation to other people, that it's making me feel like I don't know what's going on. So it's been really helpful. And I know that the Rotary Club agreed to pay for the yard signs for the seniors. Arnie Mello, who's a Rotarian, he and his wife Tracy, who used to work at Bechtel Grove, they paid $120, and the Rotary Club picked up the rest of that. And anyway, I wanted to say that I know that none of us really know what exactly is going on and how things are going to fall out for next year, but that we're all in this together, and we need to work together to try to make this work for the best interest of kids. Because I said that when I got elected, that's my main agenda, is I care deeply about kids, and that's why we're all here. So we got to make it work for the kids. Thanks.
Paula?
Well, I kind of have to ditto everything everybody else said. Plus, I just in answer to that little email, I understood that the Sanhedrin kids and charter school kids were also going to get those signs. So I'm hoping that happened. I only understand that through Facebook, and I never know if Facebook's as accurate as it might need to be. But anyway, that is what I heard. And the other part is that it's been real nice. I've been to the school sites just to look around and see what people are doing. And most of the time, I can always find people at the high school. Sometimes I can't at the others, but I'm sure it's because they're busy working and doing a lot of chores. And it really is starting to look more and more like things are okay. I'm really hoping that all those little fixes that need to happen, those little maintenance custodial things, get taken care of, especially where they mostly always seem to need time and not really money. So I'm hoping that goes the way that it could go. And that's pretty much all I can think of. The food program picked up a lot since the last time I was there. And like it almost doubled from what I understand. And I also think that graduation plan is a real good one.
Thank you. Mr. Colvig?
Just want to say, in this time of change, let's all keep in mind that the health and safety of our children is what comes first.
Yep, absolutely. Mr. Chavez?
I would just like to extend my appreciation again for the staff and their hard work for making it happen for our kids. Also appreciation to the parents and the students who are working with our teachers and doing such a great job. Also, congratulations to the retirements. I hope you have a great year of retirement. And I'm also very glad to see that we're honoring our graduates. I was so concerned about that. When I heard the plan, I thought that is the best plan I've heard as I've listened to others across the state. So thank you, Mark and Mike, for your hard work in developing that plan for, that's it.
Okay, thank you. And Superintendent Westerberg, you've got the floor.
Okay, well, tomorrow is Newsom's proposed budget. I wouldn't get real excited about what it says because it's going to have multiple revisions. I think the basic premise is the state is $18 billion under what they need. And so it's going to have some impact on everybody. You know, we'll see where that goes. In regards to that, the district's probably at the next board meeting is going to have some emotion about having a summer layoff potential and have to pass that resolution. We need to do that to protect our interests, to make sure that we can survive the financial storm. You know, I'm hoping federal legislation helps and doesn't completely bury us. But again, we got to plan for the worst and hope for the best. And that's part of planning for the worst. Some positive things. We're getting some action in our pool. We are having a lifeguarding class in there for the kids so they can be lifeguards this summer. The lifeguarding class is going to follow all the rules where they're not going to use the locker room. They come dressed, leave dressed, mask, social distance. The restrooms will be one at a time only. They have only 12 people inside that area at one time. Honestly, the pool's the safest place you can be. The chlorine in the pool kills the virus. So if you really want to be safe, hide in the pool. The other issue with that is I know that Robert's talking about the otters going back in, and he's got to go through all his social distancing and how they're going to make that happen. The city has talked to us about running swim lessons on very limited groups of numbers of kids. Sabrina Rodriguez is trying to do a couple classes for her summer program, which helps people with daycare. Kids Club will open in some limited fashion who use the pool as well. So when it's 90 degrees out and sunny and you're in a swimming pool, that's about as safe as environment as you can get. So I'm really looking forward to that. We put a lot of time and effort in the pool. So people ask me all the time about the fall and reopen. Absolutely no idea. I mean, absolutely no idea. It's another one of those scenarios. I know that Alex has talked to board members and to me about putting together a group of people to look at what are our options. I mean, essentially, we got to follow the whatever rules they come up with. But at this point, we might want to do, if this happens, we do this. If this does, we do this. And what would it look like and what kind of creativity can we get? So I know that's part of what our plan should be is the board would like a committee of people with some teachers, some admin, some support staff, and just sit down and try and figure out what are our best options and what kind of creative ideas are out there. I know that Maryland and Ohio have already put out state guidelines for their states. And I think we might be able to use some of their material. An interesting one, we were reading, Mike and I were reading, and Kelly were reading Maryland's, and they talked about one of the things was you need to make your hallways one way, one direction, which was kind of an interesting thing we really didn't think about. But in the high school building, you could make one-way hallways, you know, but the high school is really the only place that has many interior hallways. But we'll look at that. We are maintenance custodian are killing it. We're getting a ton of stuff done. There's all kinds of things we'll get done by the start of the year. the high school is almost completely ready to start next year's school year. They're almost done with the high school. And so the goal is 1 coat of wax on the floors because paint lasts all year long. So that's our plan. Food service is put out their bid. I met with Christy today. She's putting the bid out, I guess, tomorrow, but we looked at it, and that's one of the goals for food service is to trim those costs, and bidding is the way to do that. Christy and I will be meeting, I'm thinking next week, with food service to talk about transitioning to a couple kitchens and what that's going to look like. You know, everyone is asking me about things about graduation, and we came up with a plan that I think will work. I asked the county health department. They gave me a few things to make sure we say and do. But I think we have a graduation that'll be kind of fun and certainly unique for kids. We'll live stream it on Facebook and YouTube, and it'll be pickup trucks going around the track, stopping with recorded speeches, and Mike will be out in the center of the football field as kind of the traffic cop, and he'll be doing some speaking about presenting the graduates. And then we hope to take a little, I wouldn't call it a parade, I'd call it more of a processional through town and then past the 3 other schools. And so I think it'll be a good experience for the kids. I know that people are nervous and upset and asking questions about what's going to happen. What are we going to do with this? You know, what about my position? All those things. It's really too early to answer those questions. All I can tell you is that we're in a position right now where we're trying to protect the classroom space. And so that's the deal, is everything we're doing is trying to make that happen. And right now, there are a lot of unknowns, but at the end of the year here, we're going to get our grades turned in, we're going to get our kids graduated, and we're going to look at what's the best way to do this if we got to do it next year. So that's it for right now.
Okay. One suggestion with respect to your graduation plan, I wonder if that, in order for everybody in the vehicles to hear what's going on, is there a way to get that broadcast over radio?
Actually, if you live stream it, it'll more than carry the audio. Well, the camera will be audio video.
Okay.
I could talk to the radio station about if they want to broadcast it.
It couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Might make it nicer, especially for family members that can't attend.
Well, we still have Hal doing the sound, so we're going to have a really loud quality sound system. And that'll be on the bleachers with the backdrop we usually use. So when they go by the center, they stop and get a picture taken. And my guess is it's going to be really loud. Where I live up here on the top of the hill at Redwood, you can hear football games. You'll be able to hear graduation probably without much problem up here, which would be kind of cool.
All right. Next item is the consent agenda. Any public comments? Mark, have you seen any public comments on the consent agenda?
I have not. I will check one more time though. You can continue. I'll just check and see if there are any.
So while we're doing that, so as a preliminary prior to discussion, can we get a motion to approve and a second for the consent agenda?
Well, I have a question about number 7 before you
I'll
do
move
that.
to approve this
Sorry.
consent agenda.
So the motion to approve has been made by Mr. Chavez, and do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, so let's talk about discussion. Paula, you had a question?
Yeah, and number 7, the thing on campus security. it says that it's been modified or clarified that the audio capability of surveillance equipment should be disabled in accordance with state law prohibiting, and you can read all the rest. Okay, so I'm wondering why it can't be shall be instead of should. I know that in past board policy languages and other policy languages, they use should just like they use may, and it's easily twisted around. I'd like it to be real concrete, you know, even though I know our signs are the signs will be made and they will be very clear about what goes on with that security system. I just think it would be in the district's best interest if they were disabled. And then if you want to preview them or whatever, you deal with the video part.
So what paragraph are you looking at, Paula?
Oh, it's the very first sentence on the background, the BPAR revised. I looked for it in the policy and I didn't see where it said that. So I just figured where it's like an introduction or something.
Oh, I got you.
Okay, and so because
Well,
on the policy I was reading and I didn't see it written in there specifically. It talked about search and seizure and everything else. The is sort of still there where it doesn't really belong, but it should, I would imagine, be on the surveillance systems, the part right under comprehensive safety plan in the policy itself, where it says the superintendent or designee shall identify and goes on and on. It should probably be there, but
Well, it already says cameras shall not be placed in areas where students, staff, or community members have a reasonable expectation of privacy. And that's state law, we know that.
right.
Now, with respect to your comment about the background, which is the first part of this,
Right.
it's the quote background information. That's not the policy. It's just
Well,
background.
that's exactly true, and that's why I'm kind of concerned why it's not just that sentence isn't a little more clear. I mean, the expectation of privacy ends up being real objective, or rather real subjective instead of objective.
I don't know that you can make it any more
Vague?
objective. And the reason why is because, as we've discussed before, there is some disagreement, if you will, based on which attorney you talk to as to what's
there you go.
What's quote legal and what's not. And unfortunately, the only way we ever get to the bottom line of that is once it actually gets tested in a court. So
right, and kind of my hope is that we don't have to push it that far, so
agreed.
that it's pretty clear up front, and it's not like, well, I'll just wait to see. If I don't get busted, I'll continue to do what I do until somebody busts me. And if I never get busted, well, then it doesn't make any difference. That kind of attitude's a little hard for me. I would think that maybe we could avoid an issue before it becomes one. And I don't see where it should be that difficult to go ahead and agree with that.
Well, this is a board policy, but my 2 cents is I always want the audio because it saves people when they say something. And I keep probably 4 or 5 times with CSEA folks in particular, where having it on audio helped them. Having it on bus on audio helps them. There's only one spot again that we've kind of beat this thing up, and you know, we need to get off the stick and move on it if we're going to move on it.
Well, I would argue that about once a year we should come back and revisit where all of our cameras are, where we're recording audio and video, and make sure that nothing has changed in the environment there that makes the area where someone would expect privacy, and therefore, you know, not be able to be audio recorded. But with respect to the current policy that we're looking at right now, I'm comfortable with that policy as written. I believe it meets all the requirements from with respect to state law and privacy. Now the question is, you know, are we going to be able to meet all that? And the other part, and I think we can, but the other part is, again, you get 5 different attorneys to listen to this thing and read this thing. You know, all 5 of them are going to give us different opinions. Some good, maybe some not. Again, there's no way for us to know one way or the other until it gets tested in a court of law. And I would hope we never get there. But once again, I'm comfortable with the policy as it's written.
And so let's just imagine then that we vote in favor of this tonight. Then as soon as when do signs go up and things get taken care of?
How soon will the signs go up?
Yeah, how soon will this be something that you can say, well, there isn't an issue. We have signs here and here and here and here and everywhere else.
Well, I'm assuming it takes at least a couple weeks to get signs. I haven't ordered them yet because we haven't approved the policy yet.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And we're not in session, so it doesn't really matter yet. But
well, it'll matter for someone to have the time to put them up. I mean, you know, that they don't have
we'll
another
have plenty of time to put
responsibility.
them up.
So my,
Okay, so you figure
my
2 or
answer-
3 weeks?
As
Well,
soon
my
as
answer
we
to
get
that,
the
Paula-
signs, it'll be fairly quickly. We got a bunch of other signs we're already putting up because they were, my pictures, they were old and faded and needed to be replaced. So we got several days of sign putting up going on.
Oh,
So
okay.
if I could throw some direction out there, I would argue that all of the signs with respect to this particular policy need to be in place before we open school for the next school year.
That would be good.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Oh, okay.
I
Thanks.
just don't want to spend money on signs and then go, oh, you know, we want to change this word on it. If I do that, that's be a costly change.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor of the consent agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? None opposed. So moving on. We are at item number C, Charlie, approval of Learning Communities for School Success Program, MFT position and corresponding salary schedule. I'd like a motion to approve and a second, if I could get it.
I move that we approve it.
Okay, item C, been moved to approve. Second, please.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Colvig. If you want to give us some background on that and let us know what's going on there, Mark.
Yeah. With Patty's retirement at Brookside, that position that she holds is really critical. It's not necessarily a counseling position. It's student intervention. It's working with kids who are having some struggles. And we have a lot of kids, even at K-1-2, who have some pretty serious struggles. Jeff Kramer is a family therapist who the district has employed for quite some time. Jeff has always been a contract employee with the district. And being a contractor has come into question well before we had our COVID issues. There was a law passed about what constitutes a public or a contractor, and he does not meet that definition. We are his sole employer. And it's in Jeff's best interest and our best interest to bring him on staff. He's a quality person who's worked here a long time. And this position is a classified management position. We used a Ukiah pay scale that had a $1 per hour amount. And then we matched it up with our counseling schedule to come up with the pay scale. So the pay scale is based on our counseling schedule and the normal rate of pay for this type of position. Jeff would be similar to what a social worker would be. And he does a great job for us. There are occasions when we need a family therapist because of an IEP. Jeff will still be able to do those. The bulk of his work was consumed with the TIERS program, but now that the county has taken that over, they're responsible for the counseling in that program. So Jeff is available to us to use at Blosser. In regards to the grant, there is a grant that Jeff has been working on last year and again this year coming up. That's that communities grant on attendance. And he's been doing home visit, home calls, and helping us try and bring up our ADA. And so I also like the fact that a male presence at Brookside is a good thing. This is a good move financially for us, for Jeff, and for the district. So it alleviates us both of the contract employee status that was going to be problematic. So.
And this, oops, sorry.
Go ahead, Paula.
The savings financially to the district, you're considering adding Patty's salary and his cost of being contracted, and then you're just deducting the 67,000, and that's what you're considering the savings?
Well, whenever you talk about cost, you have to do STRS, PERS. If you're PERS, you have to add on FICA, healthcare, all of that stuff. So there's a lot of other math going on, but essentially taking Patty's position away and putting Jeff in that spot allows us to basically be down by one and save that. And of course, Patty was here a long time. She just retired. She's at the top of the pay scale. So it's a significant savings for the district. It's one of the moves we need to do, in my opinion, to make sure we're prepared for a financial hit coming up.
So can you, I mean, the district did receive the grant, or he's still hoping to receive it?
We did receive it. It'll be year 2 of the grant next year. Jeff was in it last year.
Right, which is why it's the almost 40 grand, right?
Right.
Okay, and so then you put in there about 69, almost $70,000 from the district. So you're
Right.
figuring that that 110 includes all the STRS, or no, I guess he wouldn't do that, but the PERS and all the other additional side costs, etc.
Yes.
So
Or you, what?
I was going to say, so the cost incorporates all statutory health benefits as well as salary, and the component, that $40,000 for the grant, that is, neutral, status quo from what we've already been doing. The difference is that now, instead of a 1.0 FTE being charged out to the general fund, which is what that counseling position was, we now have less than an FTE because it's part of this position. So there's savings from having less of the FTE being charged to the general fund. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does. And I'm just asking, so it's going to cost the general fund about $70,000 as opposed to, I don't know, probably about close to $200,000, or it's going to cost $70,000 plus all these other additional side costs, so that you're not really saving 100 grand, or are you?
You're not saving 100 grand. You're saving of an FTE. So whereas in the past, the expense for that 1.0 FTE in the general fund would have been higher than that, 60 or 70,000, a higher expense before. But the difference is not $100,000. I don't have that.
Well, the simple way to look at it is we employed Jeff last year.
Right.
If we employ Jeff this year, but we don't employ Patty at all, we take Patty's entire FTE and FICA, retirement, STRS, healthcare, all of that, and you subtract it out.
Well, I don't know that's so, Mark, the part that is in the LCSSP is what we've already been paying. So that part of it is the same. The piece that's leaving is the special ed, but that piece would be leaving anyways.
Right.
So I feel like our true savings is the difference between the 1.0 FTE and the percentage of him that we would actually charge to the general fund.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Regardless, it's a move that saves the district money.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's also a move that meets the needs of kids at Brookside. So
Correct.
And retains quality staff.
Okay. It's a win-win the way I look at it. Any further discussion on item C? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. We'll move on to item D, approval of resolution 2019-20-16, ordering an election to authorize the issuance of general obligation bonds, establishing specifications of the election order, and requesting consolidation with other elections occurring on November 3rd, 2020. If we could get a motion to approve and a second for that.
I move we approve.
Moved by Mr. Colvig. A second.
I'll second.
Mr. Chavez seconds. And let's have some discussion. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. We're going to be on the ballot one way or the other, okay? Because we have two board seats that are Bob and Alex. So we're going to be on the election. In regards to that, that's obviously no choice. We have even year elections. So putting our bond back in place on the November ballot, the only thing we've changed to that is the fact that we have also included the Willits charter. We're doing an MOU with them to make them part of it for a portion of it. We also have the latitude in our bond to, because we're not building anything new, we can control our request for what we ask for. So we could, if the economy's not rebounded where we need it to, we can hold off or ask for less. We do not have a limit on the number of draws we can do or the number of, or the amount of that draw. So you could ask for 20 on 100 and you could do it 5 times. We have a limit on the amount of revenue we can generate from that GO bond is 17 million, but we do not have a limit really on the number of draws you would do. I mean, there's a common sense limit, but we need to put it back on the ballot. If we don't, it's 2 years from now before it can go back on. And 2 years from now, even if it passed in a November election, you're going to be 3 years out until you're really fixing stuff and get revenue. I'm just not sure a couple of the facilities are going to make it 3 more years without that. And based on the financial things we're going into now, this is a way to try and repair the facilities, because if we got to do it out of general fund, it's going to add to the pain.
I'll be the first one to agree. I would rather be able to do this without involving the charters, but in looking at it, if you look at the bigger picture, this is, in my opinion, what's best for the kids across the community, regardless of whether they're in a charter system or our system.
They were on the last bond as well. And their demographics are, our high school is much larger and their high school is very small compared to their elementary. Those kids are, a lot of those kids are still coming to Willits Unified. So they have a vested interest in our facilities as well.
I have concerns that with the economy having tanked because of COVID-19 and all the restrictions on businesses and people not being able to go to work, and it's a whole different economic scene out there than it was in at the beginning of the year. And I just, I think people are really going to be hurting financially. I'm not sure that people are going to be willing to vote for a bond, but even if they want to support schools. But
I don't disagree with that, Jeannie. The only issue is 3 years from now is too late. And at this point, the real issue with bond issues is property values. Property values have not changed based on what's happened with the economy. Now, they might down the road. And again, that's where the board has total control on how much you ask for and how many times you ask for it. So that is a board decision that you can go over a long length of time to do that. So that's, and again, I never want to go out to the ballot. I wish we had it, but we don't.
So there's some interesting language in the bond. One of those pieces of information is if the bond passes and the economy is still not good enough for us to go issue bonds, we are able to go ahead and spend general fund money on the repair projects in the anticipation of selling bonds, and then we can come back and use the proceeds from the bonds to make the general fund whole again if and when we actually issue bonds. So the other issue with respect to the bonds is the only way we're going to be able to pass these bonds is by finding a way to convince the public to essentially trust the school board to not issue bonds until the economy shows significant signs of recovery. In talking, in reading a whole bunch of information about what's going on with the economy, some people are suggesting that this economy is not going to see a significant recovery until 2024. That's very possible. We're hoping that, if a vaccine or an effective treatment comes on board, our recovery is going to be fairly quick. And that's probably more realistic. But again, Mark is very, very correct. If we wait until 2 more years down the road, some of these projects that we've got may be overwhelming by then, and the costs associated with these projects are going to just skyrocket. So
let me ask Nikki a question that Paul asked me that I don't know. Nikki, is there an additional charge to put the bond on the election as long we're already on it for electing board members?
I believe there would be an additional charge, but I don't know how much that would be. But yes, I believe for every additional item that you add to the ballot, there's an additional fee.
Wow.
I think it would be less significant than this last one where we did not originally have something on the ballot and had to put an item on when there was nothing previously. So I think it would be a lesser added expense than this last time, but I would need to follow up with the county assessors to find out the particulars.
well, I think the elections department owes us a freebie because they really messed up on the last ballot by putting the wrong item amount. So they should make it up by giving us a freebie.
I tend to agree with you, Jeannie. Is there any leverage we can pull there, Mark?
Let me say this, and I'm going to be politically correct. It was very similar to going to DMV.
There you go.
Yeah, I get it. Is there any other further discussion on the bond issue? Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Actually, this is, hold on.
Aye.
This is a resolution, so it must be a roll call vote.
Yeah. Trina, are there 2 resolutions, right?
They're supposed to be.
Yes, there are 2 resolutions,
Yeah.
2 separate resolutions. two separate roll call votes.
And so you need
Right.
to do a resolution on the board member election and one on the GO bond.
But they're two separate items, Mark. So we are on item D currently.
Right.
Yeah,
And
we're
that
stick,
is item E,
right.
Yep.
We're only talking about item D at the moment.
correct.
So for the roll call vote, Jeannie,
I,
Mr. Colvig,
Aye.
Mr. Chavez,
Aye.
one more time, Mr. Chavez, aye?
Aye.
We're having trouble hearing you, I'm sorry.
I heard him say aye.
Okay, good.
I apologize. I'm having some difficulty with my internet here. Aye.
Okay, and Paula
No.
and myself, aye. Item number E, like a motion and a second for item number E. Item number E is the resolution 2019-20-17, ordering
Yeah.
election for 2 board members. That'll be for Mr. Colvig and myself.
I move that we do that.
Moved by Paula, seconded by,
I'll second.
and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. And Jeannie,
I,
Mr. Chavez,
Aye.
Mr. Colvig,
Aye.
Mrs. Nunez,
Aye.
and myself, aye. Item number E carries. So we're on to item number F, grading and graduation requirements due to COVID-19. There's been some discussion about that amongst a variety of us. Mark, I'll let you start off.
Yeah. This is predominantly just a high school issue. Mike and I talked early on about this. Our board policy is fine in this because our board policy talks about when you're in a, I'm trying to paraphrase what it says, when you're in an alternative learning situation, credit, no credit is always an option. And so obviously our kids are in an alternative learning type situation. And essentially what we're doing is credit, no credit, or A or B. Mike and I felt fairly strongly that we need to reward kids who are going above and beyond and working really hard and doing everything they should and giving them the A or B grade. Even though it's not required necessarily to give them an A or a B, but I think it values their work. And we're not going to give out C's and D's and F's. We're going to do credits and no credits because that's essentially what we should do at this time. Did the child do enough to establish that they should get credit or no credit? Did they go above and beyond? Oh, I think we should award them with a B if they did the work. If they really did a great job, give them an A. I don't see any reason why we would not give them that grade.
Are all the teachers at the high school on board with that process?
I'm hoping so. I know Mike has had the conversation multiple times. Our board policy does say that when they're in an alternative learning environment like that, the parent can request credit or no credit.
Is there something that we as a board can do to basically force this issue? Because I think this is a process. This is a policy that should be in play across the board for all the teachers, not just those that want to play or agree with it. We're in strange times, and I just don't want to see. I don't want to see the kid that has been utilizing the school system as their sanctuary, and now they're stuck at home where they're in chaos, and they're not able to perform to where they would normally perform to, and the result is You know, they're still doing enough work to get credit. I don't want to see that kid to being penalized with a D or an F because their situation changed where they simply can't perform like they would if they were able to at the high school.
Well,
Thank you for saying that, Alex. That's important.
one of the unique things about this issue is that there's actually a lot of legislation about board and administration not being able to influence a grade book. And so this is a scenario where if the board, if Mike puts out a directive to his staff to use that grading scale and a teacher adamantly denies that they want to do it, it could be a disciplinary thing. But as a board and as a principal, Mike can't make a teacher change grades. So it's kind of a unique area. It's a unique area to protect teachers' right to give a grade. And obviously, you know, most of this comes from eligibility for athletics and all that kind of stuff is where, you know, this is like paying for your ACTs and that kind of stuff comes in. But this is an area where the teachers should be in agreement on this. Nobody should disagree with that. That makes sense. I can't imagine somebody wanting to punish kids who are in an environment where it's not conducive to homework, they don't have the access they need. That would be unreasonable. I don't believe we have anybody on the high school who's going to be in that mentality. I think one of the only issue that I've heard is that, you know, there's students who are taking classes like elective classes who are normally really good in their normal core classes, but, you know, I might not be a very good artist. You know, what's it going to look like if I get a C or a credit instead of a grade? Credits don't affect it. I think everybody will recognize what a credit means in the spring trimester of the COVID year. So
All of the colleges that both State College and UC colleges are basically giving everybody a pass and accepting credit, no credit across the board. So there's nothing to be gained by giving poor letter grades to students at this stage of the game by any teacher.
you can get into those online colleges next year with a credit.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that I should write Mike a formal note to say that make sure that your staff is following the guidelines. It is I must tell you, if they choose not to, it's probably a fight we're not going to do very well on, but it's one where it becomes a disciplinary issue, not following a directive in regards to a policy. But literally, we can't go change the grade book.
Well, you know, I would support doing exactly that. I don't know what the rest of the board feels.
Robert and Paula and Bob, you should all have a pretty solid opinion on this one as a counselor and a teacher and a principal.
Yeah. Well, I think it's pretty easy. I think we just, I agree with the credit, no credit. And if they've done something exceptional, then a grade of an A, or close to exceptional, then a grade of B.
Yeah.
But as Alex said, the colleges, I think it's almost universal across the country now that they're going to accept pass-fail for the spring semester for all of the seniors.
Mm-hmm.
Is this going to apply to the middle school as well, or are we just concerned with the high school?
The middle school is really not about credit because they don't get credit to move on, and their grades, they don't do honor roll stuff like that. But I believe most of the middle school is all doing credit, no credit. I don't think they're doing anything but that.
We're doing A, B, credit, no credit.
Oh, are you?
Just like you told the high school to do.
Yep. Thanks, McKenna.
Okay. Yeah, I understood it was going to be the same as the high school. And
I think it should be.
yeah,
It may-
that's not, I'm just real concerned. Also, I believe very strongly in a teacher's right, so to speak, to determine a grade. I do certainly hope that, with the exception of only a few classes that I could think of offhand, it would be credit or no credit, because our kids, a lot of the kids, especially at the middle school, so I'm certain it happens at the high school, go home to other siblings, parents who are working if they're essential, and many of our kids as folks stayed essential during all of this that's
Right.
gone on. And it's just real difficult when you're supposed to take care of the 3-year-old and the 10-year-old and your own self, the 12-year-old, and do all the chores you're left with, as well as all the education, and then maintain letters. And half the time your internet isn't what it's supposed to be. And there are just a lot of things that are involved in. As much as I believe in grades and certain classes shouldn't be that difficult, it's either a particular grade or not, I just am really hoping that everybody takes all the outside differences that we've come up with as a part of the consideration.
Yeah.
I did read your thing about how no one's going to not pass, but that there are some classes that will be made up, and some, you'll just start them next year, a third of the way through instead of finished,
Yeah. Well,
and I would hope that that's what happens.
Yeah, one of the beauties of the trimester at the high school is that the number of B sections in the spring that kids have to pass is very minimal. The high
Okay.
school kids really the seniors only have 2 sections of English and 3 sections of econ that are graduation requirements left.
Mhm.
Also, the only other class that's really critical in sequence is Algebra 1B. And Mike is able to put Algebra 1B in the fall, and then a student could go to Algebra 2A, 2B, winter, spring.
Okay.
So we can make up for that. Any other failures of B classes like US History B, they're not sequential in nature, so they can just plug them into a winter, spring again.
Okay.
Just like an English credit. They could pick up an English credit, doesn't matter when it is.
Uh-huh.
And so, but Mike and I've already worked that out in next year's high school master schedule. We're keeping an eye on the math failures in Bs and making sure we're ready for that in the fall.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to encourage, go ahead and push a memo out to Mike and encourage those teachers to follow that grading scheme.
Yeah.
We are unless there's further comments on that, we are at public comments for items not on the agenda.
Did we have to vote on item F?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I believe based on board policy, according to,
Right.
according to Mark, we don't really have, we can't direct a teacher how to grade.
Okay. Got it.
The law.
Alex, I just want to say, this is Maria, I just want to say that all of our teachers are doing the same grading, using the same grading system. There isn't any that's using anything different.
Very good. Thank you, Maria. We very much appreciate that.
I think the high school is where you always see the content master mentality occasionally, that you got to tone down a little bit when things aren't the way they normally should be.
Yeah. And I would agree, under normal circumstances, I have no issue with all the teachers. It's their classroom, their rules. But I think we are clearly in unprecedented circumstances here. And I just want to make sure that we provide our students the benefit of the doubt wherever we can.
Yep.
That's really what it boils down to.
Yep.
Can I ask a question in public comments? This is Jenny. Can you tell me, is Sanhedrin High School, are the graduates also coming to the high school ceremonies?
Yes.
Thank you.
I talked with Jeff today to make sure he knew this was coming. I talked to him about my plan, I think Sunday or Monday. I think I talked to him Monday about it because I met with Mike and I talked to Jeff about it. And yes, they are absolutely part of it. We have one graduation.
Thank you.
And for items not on the agenda, one of the things I would like to throw out there is I'm thinking that for the board and a couple of key members of the administration, we should still be able to hold a televised board meeting without the public in the room at the library at the high school in June. I mean, what are the thoughts for the rest of the board?
The June 10th one?
Correct.
Ouch. Oh, okay. I'm hoping so.
Well, I think we can maintain appropriate social distancing in that room. We might have to speak a little louder to one another, but I still think that we should be able to hold those meetings with no more than say 8 to 10 people maximum in the room, and so that we could have at least a little bit of face-to-face interaction.
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe if I have a mask on, it'll gag me more so I don't talk as much.
No, that's not good.
Okay, Mark, I'd be willing to work with you on
I'm
helping
okay.
that up, but I think we can make that work.
Okay. Yeah.
Is
not
there
a
anything
problem.
further for the board?
No, sir.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I want to thank the people who logged in. I appreciate everybody
Also
coming
moved.
into the board meeting.
Yes, agreed. Very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did I hear a motion by Mr. Colvig or?
Robert,
Okay, Mr. Chavez made a motion to adjourn. Seconded by?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Colvig. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right. Thank you. It'll be out on YouTube in a little while.
Good.
You all
Thank you
be
very
stars.
much.
Everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.